Hi guys, I'm back with another tutorial. Now following on from my winterberry wreath tutorial, this is my summer inspired floral wreath, and this is amazing because you're going to learn how to make all these pretty little elements including bumblebees to then add to a final hoop, and I'll show you how you make the hoop and assemble this in the next video. So sit back, enjoy, and I can't wait to see what you all create. So for this project I'm using the Beau flower paste. It's the first time I've used this, and I'm going in with Berberis from Squires kitchen. This is a food gel. We have tools from Sunflower Sugar Art Studio, and we're just going to use a 5-petal cutter. I'm going in with a little bit of a larger size. You can use whatever cutter you prefer. Now you need a veining board that has these little holes in, and they're called Mexican hat boards, but we want to use the firmer style, and I've coloured my gum paste in with the Berberis to get that really nice orange. I'm using the side of a cell tool, and that's just because it's a little bit smaller and easier to roll this paste out. So I've gone in using this middle size little hole in my board, and I'm just going to roll this out fairly thinly. But what you'll see here is that we get this little pimple behind the gum paste, and that is what we're using to secure these flowers to our wire. So I'll go in and making sure that the pimple is in the center of our flower cutter, I'm just going to press that down and cut out my flower shape. I can leave a link below to the tools that I'm using in this tutorial. So I'll just use the end of my cell tool to pop that out, and then going in with a softer Mexican hat board, I'm going to use the middle size hole here, press my little pimple into there, and then taking a small ball tool, we're just going to soften the edges of these petals. So half on the mat and half on the gum paste. Just rolling that ball back and forth, trying to keep it sitting in the little hole. Now I'm going to take a toothpick or cocktail stick, and I'm going to make little ruffles and lines in the side of each petal. So you're basically just pressing this in halfway and rocking the toothpick back and forth to get these little lines. And you can ruffle these flowers as much or as little as you wish to get the final look that you're going for. It's completely up to you, and the more you texturize these and the more you ruffle these, then the more delicate they will look. So it is a very small flower, so it can be a little bit fiddly and move around a bit, but that's absolutely fine, just persevere. I'm just holding down the side a little bit here just to make it easier for me. And we're going to use a 30 gauge florist wire for these flowers because they're very small and very light, so we do not need a particularly thick wire to hold these up. So what I like to do is kind of curl these edges a little bit with my fingertips as well as we go, just to get the shape that I'm going for. So here we have our 30 gauge wire. I use the Hamilworth brand, and I'm just going to cut about a 5 centimeter piece off. And what you want to do is take some pliers and make a little hook in the very top of this wire, and this is what will help hold the flower to the wire, or your gum paste to the wire. So going in with some edible glue, we're just going to dip the very top of this wire where we've made the hook in the edible glue. This just gives it a little something to adhere to, and then going through the center of our little blossom, right back through where we've made that little pimple, as I like to call it. As you can see here, we're just going to pull this wire down through the back of the flower, squeezing that little pimple down as we go, and hooking the hook nice and firmly into that gum paste. So we're not going all the way down, we're just going to the very surface of the flower. So you will see the wire here, but we will hide that later on in the tutorial. And again, just curl those petals and manipulate them so they've got a nice pretty shape to them. And just make sure you're securing that gum paste to the wire at the back by pressing that gum paste down onto the wire. And then we can just leave these in a block of styrofoam to set up overnight. And there's our first flower. So what I'm going to show you next with my very red fingers is I have dyed this gum paste red velvet. This is the sugar flag colour, and we are going to do this blossom but in 3 different styles, as you'll see here. And these don't require any tools except your fingers and a pair of very small scissors. So this is fantastic if you don't have any cutters. It kind of shows you how you can make really cool little blossoms that are very different to each other with just a few tools. So I have my little cell tool again to roll out the gum paste, and my scissors. And what I'm going to do now is just take a small piece of gum paste and roll it into a little teardrop shape like we have here. And then I'm going to take the tip of my cell tool and make like a little indentation through the middle into our cone. So we have like a little hole here. Then taking our scissors, I'm going to cut 5 petals. So just cutting this down. I will show you this again if it is a little bit blurred on the camera, so not to worry. I've done my 5 petals and I'm just going to pull these out with my fingers here. And then what we will do is we will just press the very tips of each petal together so that we get a nice point. So just taking your thumb and finger, you can just press those in, and already we have a very pretty little flower. Then pressing down again on the top of each petal to flatten them, and this just thins them out and makes them look a little bit more realistic. And then what I like to do, you can leave this plain, or you can go in with a dog bone tool and just make these little indentations. Sorry, not a dog bone tool, with a veiner tool. There's so many cake tools that I get really mixed up sometimes with the different names, but this is your typical veiner tool, sorry. And then like you can see, we're just making little indentations into the tops of these petals. Again, just to add some interest and make them a little bit different. And then we can even take our scissors and cut into the very tips of each petal, again to get a completely different look. And if any of you are familiar with the Disney film Pocahontas, these really remind me of that movie. Again, we just go in with our wire just as before with a hook on the end, adding a little bit of glue to the very tip, and then we just thread that through the center of this petal or flower. And like I say, this is just so fantastic. If you do not have a big range of flower cutters to hand, it shows you that you can do these with just your fingers, essentially. And this is what we actually call hand-pulled flowers. Okay, so that's the first of our 3 flowers that we're going to make, and I'll show you how to make the other 2. We can just set this up in a styrofoam block like we have with our previous flower and leave that overnight. Like I said, I'm using the Beau flower paste for the first time, and for this project it has proven to be a really good gum paste to work with, so I definitely recommend this if you are looking to try out a new flower paste. So just as we have done before, we're going to go in with our cell tool using the pointed cone and just go in and cut out our 5 petals. These are very fine scissors that I actually just purchased on eBay for like a couple of pounds or bucks. So what we'll do this time is I'm actually going to flip this flower over on its side and press down on the back of each petal with a small ball tool. And this is just to show you that you can get a completely different shape. So I can go in with a large ball tool and just spread these out a little bit more, softening each petal to make them more round and soft over being that kind of pointed petal shape. This again you can actually do with your fingers. So again we can just leave the flower like this, or what I'm going to do is go in at an angle and actually cut in at the side of each petal. And this gives it a real kind of boho style. So I'm just going in with every petal and just kind of cutting in at the side, just really to add some interest. And what's really lovely with this is that when people come up closely and look at all these tiny flowers, these will look so elegant and detailed and different, and they'll just see how much kind of time and care has gone into each flower. So I just really encourage you to play around with the designs and kind of find your own sense of style. It's kind of like making a little feather flower is how I see it. So we have this style here, and I'm going to go back in with my hooked florist wire, just dragging that through the center as before and securing that at the back. So there we have another really fun and funky little flower that we can use in our displays. And then for the final flower, I'm softening those corners that we have just with the sides of my fingers, but not pressing this all the way in. So we're just kind of rounding off those corners by pressing them down very slightly and just using the warmth of our hands. And then I'm going to go on top and press the very tops of them so that we get this kind of softer petal shape. And then I'm going to just go in and make a little cut in the top of each petal. So again, it just shows you that different little techniques can give you a very different looking flower. So just threading that again with some florist wire. You've now completed 3 different styles of flowers with just few or no tools. And we can kind of just manipulate these into any shape that you want so that we add a little bit of movement. So what's really neat about this is when you kind of have them all bunched together, they look really cool, really different, and just really eye-catching. So definitely play around with the design. So I have this little bumblebee mold. These will be available on my Etsy store. I'll post the link below. And I'm going to go in with some cornstarch first of all, and then take my gum paste that I've dyed in ivory colour and just pop that in and then pop that out. And I'll just tidy up some of those edges with my veiner tool so that it looks like a bumblebee. Going in with a 26 gauge wire with a hook and a little bit of glue, we're just going to pop this in the bottom of the bumblebee and just secure that really nicely to there. And then I just go in with a little bit of edible gold and paint this. And this will look really cool when it's attached to our sugar flower wreath. So to make the berries, I've got my hooked wire once again and the lilac from Sugar Flare colour. That's a nice food gel colour. We're going to roll a ball. You can make these as small or as large as you want, and then just literally take in our hooked wire. We're going to go in from the bottom and pull our round piece of gum paste up to the top. and then just securing it from the bottom, you have a very simple berry. It's very quick to make. I'm now going in with this smaller leaf cutter. You again can use any shape that you wish, any kind of leaf cutter that you want. We're going to roll out some green gum paste, fairly thick, because we're actually going to put a wire through the middle. I'm pressing that out, just using my veining tool to get this out of the cutter. And then I'm going to take my wire, this time without a hook in the bottom, and we're just going to slide this through the middle of the gum paste, making sure that it's not showing on either side of the gum paste. We want it right through the center, and that's why we need to roll this gum paste out fairly thick. Then what you can do is soften the edges with a ball tool and just add some texture and shape, curling those edges as we go. So just pulling the ball tool back and forth, you can see that it curls those petals and leaves and what have you, and then we can actually just manipulate this a little bit with our fingers so that we add some interest. And then finally, I've just got a little bit of yellow royal icing, and I'm just dabbing that into the center of each of those blossoms that we've made to hide the wire that we can see, and also just add interest and give our flowers a pretty little center. Again, you can do this any color that you wish. And what I have done is I've gone in with some different colors, adding a really beautiful blue and a dark mauve to my collection of flowers to really add interest and mix the colors up. So what I'm going to show you in my next video is how to use all these beautiful flowers, leaves and bumblebees that you've made, and how to form them into a beautiful sugar flower wreath to add to your cake designs.